Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone, to the channel IT Simplified. I hope you're finding these videos on Azure useful and subscribing to channel. In today's session, I'm here to talk about Azure File Sync. So this video is part one in the series. I'm thinking of making two parts to this. So in this part, I will explain what the service and under what scenario you can use it and what benefit it provides you, and we'll also look at the pricing. So having said that, let's get started. And I would like to take a scenario. So as the Azure File Sync name suggests, it has to do with files, shares, and file server. So let me try to create a scenario. So say, for example, there's a company called IT Simplified. This company has multiple file servers. And you have storage attached to this. Now, what happens in the production environment is that most of the time, a file server they consume a lot of storage. So you might be having, say, 100 gig today attached to this machine, and down the line, maybe a year after that, your requirement has increased, and you might have to add more storage. So this keeps on going. And when we talk about these production environment, storage is very expensive. It costs a lot of money. So, what are the options for you? And before, obviously, with the coming of cloud resources, the only option was that maybe you want to have multiple file servers from redundancy purposes, or you want to add those costly storage. But now, with the cloud, what you can do is you can add the storage on a fly, and we'll look at some of the options in this. So the service that we're talking about in this case is file storage. Now, why you want to use this maybe in hybrid kind of environment is that one functionality that this provides you is cloud tiering. Now you can deploy an agent on these file server. This will get in sync with the Azure File Services or Storage Sync services, and there is a two-way replication, two-way sync, which happens in this case. So, say for example, in this case, I will say, taking example of the file server 2, I have the disk associated with this, and I have a couple of shares with this server with a share, right? When I run the sync, whatever the share that I have, I can populate right in the file storage. Now, from the storage perspective, I can assign different policy. I can enable cloud tiering, and I can specify that once this storage capacity reaches 60 gig, or you can specify whatever you want. So say, for example, you have 100 gig on this storage, right? Once it's achieved 60% of its capacity, move the shares in the file storage. So the advantage of this is that you can use the elasticity and scalability which the cloud storage provides. And secondly, from the user point of view, so if this user is trying to access, so the files which are generally accessed frequently, or what we call the hot shares, they will be there in the local storage, and the one which are not accessed that frequently, what we call cold share, will be moved to cloud in the file storage depending upon whatever policy you have configured. So you never have to keep on adding that storage. You can utilize the flexibility of file storage in this, and that is what cloud tiering is, right? So that's one advantage of using Azure File Sync. Another advantage is from the DR perspective. Now we all know that yes, these file server they carry very important information from the company perspective. Now what happens if this server goes down? Something happened and the whole thing goes down. Now because you have enabled Azure File Sync, your data is already there in the file storage. So what you can do is you can quickly spin up maybe another server here, and all that data which is there, once you just specify, it can be moved right over there because that data is already populated in the file storage. From the tier perspective, I think that's a great case scenario too, right? So you don't need to worry about you're losing your data. Now, the other functionality is, and actually it's a feature which is already there now. They have integrated this with Azure Backup Services. Generally, your server going down, the whole server going down, the chances are pretty slim, right? Because the way technology, we can have redundancy of storage and all those kind of stuff, right? But the chances are maybe you have lost that file, that data, that folder, and because Azure Backup Services integrates with file storage now, in case you lose that data or lose that share, you can restore that right by utilizing the built-in feature in file storage, which you can utilize Azure Backup Services to restore that single file and folder. So I think that's also great. So all these functionalities, all these get options get unlocked by using Azure File Sync, and you can utilize this. And in my second video, actually, I will show you all the steps. But for the understanding right now, that is how you can use Azure File Sync in a hybrid kind of environment. Or if you are everything in the cloud, right, you can deploy these file storage. You can create a network share. You can mount this onto a network drive, and you can use the same protocol, like it uses the SMB protocol, which we are so used to using it on-prem. So I think that's a great option that to get unlocked within Azure. So this was the theory part. Let me just show you now the pricing, because obviously once you want to deploy this in cloud, you want to use these services, you need to also take care of the pricing and how much it's going to cost. So I'm on the pricing calculator. If I go to the storage, under the type, you have to choose file storage, right? So that's under where the Azure File Sync services comes into play, because we're talking about creating shares within file storage. And then you have to choose tier. So you can choose a standard or a premium tier. Once you use the standard, actually let me make it 1 terabyte just to give you an idea about the pricing. So standard tier, obviously there's a capacity charge. If you want to take the snapshot, those snapshot will take space on the storage. So say for example, if I'm taking snapshot of 100 gig, you'll be paying $20 if you want to do that way. And if you use the tier which is standard, then you also have to take into consideration the operation. So anything that you do with that share, whether you put create container, all those are considered an operation, and you'll be paying accordingly the price. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention is the redundancy. So depending upon what redundancy you want, I've already explained this in my previous video. You can choose locally redundant, zone redundant, or geo redundant, and the price will be based on that. So if you can see, if I increase the redundancy, my price will change, and I'll be paying accordingly in this case. So just to keep in mind, depending upon what the SLAs are from the customers and how they want the redundancy, do they want 3 copies in one region, or they want 6 copies in multiple region, you'll be paying the price accordingly. And another thing is the price of the sync server. So it's specifically mentioned over here that one sync server, and we'll configure that when we do the deployment, is free per storage sync service. So the first sync server is free, but anything more than that you'll be paying, and it is on an average $5 that you need to pay. So that is for the standard tier. Now if I move this to the premium, you will see that the only redundancy option that I have is locally redundant. I don't have the geo or the zone redundant in this. And obviously because I'm using premium storage, which is SSD, the price will change. And for 1 terabyte, it is close to $245.76. And then there is no impact on any of the operations. So that is taken away by choosing the premium tier. And very similar for snapshot, if you want to keep it, you need to pay the price. And then for the sync server, anything more than one, the price is same. So this is what you have to keep in mind from the storage perspective. But from the deployment and the use case scenario, I talked about, it will help you do the cloud tiering. You can use this in DR kind of scenario. If the whole file server goes down on-prem, you can bring it and you can just bring the data by changing the direction of the sync. And then obviously it's also integrate with Azure Backup Services. So in case that file or that folder or that share is lost, you will be able to restore in case you have used and enabled the backup services for file storage. So this was Azure File Sync in nutshell was. In my second video, I'll show you how to configure this. I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.